Have you ever pulled my son out of a game because the players were too rude? No, I haven't yet, but I don't let him go into voice chat with people that we don't know. Well, I did one time. I mentioned earlier those parenting moments where you really question yourself, and that was one that.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if we were lucky or whatever, but I don't think we were lucky. I think it's probably the average person, and people are unnecessarily afraid. But
a guy was really
he made a friend, and we let him be friends with him, and we let him go into voice chat with him without knowing who this person was on PS4. So then I spied on their chat for a while and kind of fly on the wall a bit to make sure it's cool. And then I jumped in the chat to meet the guy and everything. And it turns out he was a father of 4. And then it's still a question about because the media tells him maybe he's a creeper, eh? Maybe he's a creeper. He's a pedo. Maybe he's a pedo. But no, he's not a pedo. What happened was that he needed help doing a quest, and he was just playing Crucible because he has no friends to play Destiny because he's an old father, like me. And he was playing Crucible, and T owned the round. He was like the number 1 on both teams. So he randomly sent T an invite saying, hey, would you mind helping me out with this quest? Because he figured, oh, this guy's a really good player. Definitely he can help me with this quest. That was his thinking. So T wrote, said, I am 6. And he said, okay, whatever. Can you help me with this quest? And that was it. It was the start of a friendship between an old father 4 and a 6-year-old. But now I know the guy. Now we've talked, and I do think he's legit. I don't think he's playing the long con, and one day he's going to try to get my son's address and come down and be a pedo.
He has a sliver.
I think people are decent people for the most part, and we're just afraid unnecessarily of our neighbors. But even since that positive thing, we did put in a policy where there's no more adding people without Dad doing the full check first. Just because I'd hate for that story to go differently, right? But yeah. Yep, I can only shelter him so long, exactly, right? But he is 6.
He's in
it's still pretty early, right? I don't think he needs to learn the hardest lessons yet, and it's something I want to ease him into. He has a very sensitive outlook on the world, and anyways, this is stuff I'm anxious about. I think about all the time. The right timing to stuff and how to transition best into giving him that kind of freedom.
If we win this game, we're gonna get 3 more
already on YouTube, right? He has, now that he can read and write, and he knows voice commands, of course, because in YouTube you can search by voice. He has the freedom to search information on his own. So he got into, say, Clash Royale. Suddenly he knew all these Clash Royale YouTubers. He's telling me, he's coming up telling me decks, telling me builds. I'm like, dude, what? He's like, oh, what? I googled Clash Royale decks. And then I came across Nick at Night, and I watched some of his videos, and then from him I found Orange Juice. I watched some of his videos, and you should place your Hog Rider 1 tile to the right, Dad, and then he'll jump across it. I'm like, the freedom exists for him to self-discover, which I think is really important, right? And that's what this generation has that I never had, is he has the know-it-all machine. He's been giving a machine in which the answer to everything known to humankind is in front of him if you know how to type out the question properly, right? So teaching him proper searching skills, the language of the search, I think, is critical. We learn the Dewey Decimal System and how to navigate a library, right? How hilarious is that? But I think to teach him how to maximize, the incredible value of Google is important.
Okay, I'm going sneaky.
And then it opens up this Pandora's box.
I'm on their side. Sweet, right? I'm on their side.
What happens when he becomes curious about certain things and starts Googling those out of my earshot or when I'm not home?
He's racing you.
There's a lot of terrible stuff out there.
His bow on the wall.
You can't put a parent filter on everything. So anyway, I'm a strong believer in building coping mechanisms, right? And I will.
Yeah, doggy.
Yeah, so it's it's about building a good balance and a good transition.
3 more wins.
Wow.
We got 7.
Wow. Is he gonna make the lighthouse and I didn't? Is that how this is actually gonna go down? Wow, that Omega Codes guy is pretty good, huh?
Oh, sweet! You got the
400.
400.
Look at that.
That's good. It's the silver one. There's a gold one that I got from. You have to get the gold one.
I let him be excited, man. But you have to also learn socially. You don't want to talk over people. You have to curb your output.
Is yours
But
right?
yeah, man, it's
Is your
it's a constant game. You're playing the parenting game. You know, always trying to do well, trying to be reasonable, and trying to be better than the previous generation. That's what it's all about, right? It's about improving. Right?
We have to win. We have to win.
I could come home one day and he's something I'm honored.
No.
And
Good.
tough for me to criticize that, I guess. But anyways, back to the SJW thing. I think that a big reason the whole SJW phenomenon exists is because of the over-sheltering of children.
So we're gonna be
When you
playing high, guys.
and like I mentioned way before, when you tell a child they're smart instead of
But I've been
good
killing
effort,
you guys, I have.
you put into their brain possibly an untrue fact
I have
that
ended the
they
game.
are brilliant.
I have ended the game.
They stop questioning themselves. They start enforcing their ideas on others because they have in their mind been embedded this idea that they are very smart, not that they work hard or that the results are a result of their work, even if you think they are really smart. And I think what we're seeing is the fruits of that generation of my kid's the best, my kid's so smart, shelter, my kid's so smart, and kids weren't taught coping mechanisms. We have a generation, there are, I know it's still a minority of people, but there's a lot of people now that you can say a few rather innocent words to, and they will break down crying and shaking and having panic attacks. Now, the problem is, of course, not with the words. It's never with words. The problem has never been with words.
He's coming, he's coming.
The problem is that we
They're all
have
on me.
a whole bunch of human beings
Or
that
one's
can't
on me.
hear certain words without their bodies
coming for
breaking
you, they're
down.
coming.
That's a really big problem that he will not have, because anyone
Yeah,
who
he's
has
coming.
any
He's coming.
actual scientific understanding of how that kind of stuff
He
works
fell,
knows
like,
that
on his knee,
exposure
like, no.
is your
Yeah,
armor.
He fell on his knees and he died.
Right? Exposure is your armor. No matter your anxiety disorders, anything, it's exposure. No psychologist in the world can say, "Oh, you have a fear of heights." Well, never go near heights then. Jeez, that's the solution to your fear of heights. That's insanely stupid, dangerously stupid. In fact, what you do when you have a fear of heights is you go to the heights. You look down from the heights, and you realize you didn't die. And you train your body to overcome that fear by making it realize that fear was irrational. That's how it works. It's the opposite of legislating language, the opposite of all that. And so that movement's so dangerous. And I understand in principle, a lot of them are very sensitive and kind and good people, and they just want people to never be unhappy for even a second. And their hearts are in the right place, but they're dangerously stupid people. And we need to stop tiptoeing around that dangerous level of stupidity, right? It's not helping anybody. Coping and learning to build that armor and learning to not be affected by those things is the solution to those things that exist and will always exist, right? Anyway, and you can cut that and quote that and put that on the web, put that on Tumblr, man, because that is the truth, man. That's the truth. Trigger warnings, man. Wow.
Yeah, he kind of jumped off the map. Well, he just fell down. You couldn't see it, right?
The real world isn't run by SJWs, and it will never be run by SJWs, but it's a movement that's gained a lot of force. There's a lot of them. But, the internet gives a small minority of people a very big voice. And I actually think there isn't a real problem. I don't think there's an actual threat to free speech, although I've read a lot of professors, that are legitimately afraid to speak their mind or be honest in class because of the repercussions from their students, right? So I'm not in university anymore. I don't know what the culture is. When I went to university, that's where I was exposed to the most radical ideas, right? And that was part of the beauty of university is you would be exposed to the full spectrum of all ideas. And you weren't given the answer. You weren't told Trump's going to make America great again. It was you were forced to learn to think for yourself, to think critically, to look at the evidence and formulate your own opinion. That's what they teach you. And it's valuable. It's so valuable to hear the opinions that you don't want to hear, that you think are wrong. Because how else do you learn to construct arguments against them?
Yeah, they usually go right.
Honestly, I'm thankful Trump is running for president, man. In my lifetime, there has never been a greater litmus test applied to the population of Earth for your ability to think critically. It's
Yeah, I got this.
not to be too negative, but it's obvious to anyone that thinks critically and logically how hilariously con man he is. Like, it's obvious. And if you're given those skills, if you're educated and you have that skill set, it's not a question. Like, it's like trying to tell me the sky is green, or it's that.
It's getting really tough.
I'm impenetrable to con man now. Right? Because I learned and was and forged into a thinker.
We're gonna do the
right?
same idea.
And so as long as we keep doing that in the propaganda centers of universities, then we'll never be overrun by fascists, right, and by con men, right? Which is exactly why they want to defund universities, the propaganda centers.
Well, it was like